In this video, we go over how to do a single color block in Lino print. The first thing you have to do is you have to flip your image. Whether you're using a photograph or a drawing, you want to make sure that the image that you have is mirrored, because when you print it, it's going to flip. So it's really important that you do that, especially if you include text, as I have done. Some of the things that you're going to need as you get your drawing ready are your lino block, carbon paper, and the transparency paper, which mine isn't particularly transparent. You can see that I've cut it to match the size of the lino block I'm printing, which is 7 by 7 centimeters. And now I'm tracing over my drawing onto the transparency paper, making sure that I get all major details. The more information I include, the easier it is to be able to transfer it onto the lino block at the next step. So as I draw in all the details, I'm trying to get as much information as possible. Transferring it onto the lino block, I'm going to remove the transparency paper, and I'm going to add a layer of carbon paper. The carbon paper is two-sided. One side is black and one side is gray. The gray side needs to be facing up, and the dark black side, which has the graphite on it, needs to be down. I'm going to place my transparency paper on it. This is my reversed image from my original drawing, so my letters are backwards. It's a good key if you kind of focus on that one key aspect. You can see that the words DIRA and the UAE are written backwards. I'm taping it down to my lino block so it doesn't shift. I then grab a pen. It can be any color. I'm just using pink to highlight what I'm doing. But grab a pen and trace over your pencil drawing, which will transfer the graphite from the carbon paper onto the lino block. That effectively transfers your drawing onto the lino block. Make sure that you check your image. Be sure that you haven't missed any details. I've actually missed the word DIRA at the top. I didn't notice that despite the bright pink pen. I have to go back and add those in. And once everything is traced, I'm going to grab a permanent marker, and I'm just going to clarify a few details, because the graphite might smudge from the carbon paper, so I want to make sure some of that information is very solidly in there so I can really see what I'm doing. This also gives you an opportunity to embellish your drawing and really be sure about what areas will be the dark values and what areas will be the white paper. Now we're going to begin carving. Now I like to start by carving with a fine blade, a lino cutter that's very thin, just to do some of the outlines. Similar when you're coloring in a coloring book as a child, it's good to start with an outline and then do the block areas, the large areas. You can see that as I hold my blade, it is about 35 degrees off the lino block surface, which allows me to incise into the lino block and pull out those pieces. You can see what areas I've carved based on the areas being lighter. They're a lighter blue, whereas the dark blue is the very topmost layer. So I want to make sure I carve out the details that I need. You can see that as I'm working, I'm paying very careful attention about the location of my fingers as it supports the lino block. My left hand, which is holding down the lino block, is always behind my right hand, which is controlling the blade. This is really important because a lino cutter, if it nicks your skin, will take out a chunk and it will hurt a great deal. You will bleed a lot. So it's really important to keep in mind your health and safety and always mind your fingers. Now as I carve, I always approach it from many different directions to get the best angle possible, and I use blades of varying sizes to get the details I need and the control I need. The next step is inking your block. For this demo, I'm using Acqua Intaglio ink, which is a soy-based ink. But those of you who are doing this in the classroom with me will probably be using the water-based inks, which are a little bit thicker and stickier. You can see that I'm putting the ink onto my palette, in this case just a plastic tray. I'm going to take a brayer, which is this tool right here, sometimes referred to as a roller, often by Americans. It's usually referred to as a brayer by most others. And I'm going to roll it in the ink to make sure that it's thoroughly covered. I'll take the brayer, now inked, and I roll it across my lino block. And you can see that the ink covers the raised surfaces of the lino block. This is also a good opportunity for me to find any mistakes and fix them as I go. Once I'm sure I've put an adequate layer of ink across the lino block, I then want to print it. In a small block like this, I'm choosing to print the block onto the paper, similar to what you would do with a stamp. However, with a larger lino block, it is often easier to put the paper on top of the lino block. You next want to apply pressure. I'm using a hand baron, but you can also use a clean brayer to roll pressure onto it, or just using your hand, just being careful not to shift the block, because if it moves, your print will be blurred and create a double image. So I'm providing even pressure across the back of the block, making sure that I'm getting all the corners and all the areas. I'm then going to carefully peel the lino block from the paper to reveal my printed image. Here you can see this from another angle, so you can see I'm rolling my brayer into my ink, and then I am rolling it across the lino block. I'm placing my paper flat on the surface, taking my lino block carefully so that I don't smudge the ink with my fingertips, and placing it on my paper. Remember that this is a small lino block, which is why I'm placing it on the paper. For a large lino block, it is significantly easier to place the paper on top of the lino block itself. I'm then using a hand baron to apply pressure, but once again, you can use a clean brayer with no ink on it to roll pressure on top. You can also use your hand, fingertips, and a spoon is often quite good for getting little details. Then you peel your block from the paper, or the other way around, and you have your prints. And here you can see the same image done 4